Welcome back to the Victim to Victor podcast, where we are more than just a podcast, but we're standing and we are raising awareness against sexual abuse. I am your host, Sherie M. Davis, and as y'all can see, my partner in crime, she's not here again, but listen, if there are any prayer warriors that are watching this podcast right now, do me a favor, please keep her in your prayers. Send in the gap. She needs y'all right now. And when she returns, she'll have a testimony because we know that through every test, God gives us a testimony. So keep her in your prayers and we thank you in advance. And listen, we have an awesome show today. But before we get into that, if this is your first time here, do me a favor, go back, check out our other episodes. My Arianna Hullum, my co-host, was the first guest that I pretty much interviewed, and she shared her story. If you have not watch that episode, go back, check it out, enjoy it, and I really do hope that her story blesses your life. And y'all know we just got an important assignment here, so listen, subscribe to our channel, share, please do us a favor, share our channel, get the message out. This is where we need your help to be able to spread this message, just like we spread the gospel. We need to be able to spread this message, the victim to victor. We want all victims to know that they are victorious and they can be restored back from for any form of abuse that they may have experienced. And so, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification so that you can be notified on any upcoming episodes. And as y'all can see, the comments are open. Share your comments, be nice. Because I told y'all, if y'all not nice, I'm going to get the Gen Z on you. And she not nice. I mean, she not nice sometimes. So be nice in the comments. Thank you for those in past episodes where we've seen your comments. We appreciate it. But we want to engage more and more and more. And so I want to make this beck and call. If you or anyone you know is experiencing or have experienced sexual abuse, rape, or incest, please contact the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-4673. If you don't want to speak to someone, if you're not a phone person, go to their website at www.rainn.org, and someone is standing by to give you the support, the guidance, the resource that you may need. And if you want to share your story and maybe you've never had a safe space to share it, come on our show. Check us out all across the globe. It does not matter. You do not have to be local with us, but we want to interview people. We want to speak with people all over the world. So listen, our website will be at the bottom of the screen. Actually, not our website. Our email will be at the bottom of the screen. You can also find it the link is in our bio. Contact us through our email. We will get in contact with you. You guys know Arianna Hullum. She is a social media queen. She always say, DM her. Don't forget to DM her. Our @ will be also on the screen, and you can find them in our bio. So listen, if you want to share your story, you need a safe space. I'm here to tell you that this is a safe space, and we want to hear your story. Thank you again. So y'all, today, I got an episode today. This is why. Y'all know last week, every time I got somebody special in, I boast. Last week, my cousin was here. I'm like, my first cousin in the house. So this week, I have my dear friend, my sister. Okay, y'all, we not blood sisters. Y'all know how that is, right? You know what I'm saying? When we bond, we bond. Right. My dear sister, Dr. Marie Amarante, is in the house with me today. I was stoked when she said yes. Thank you so much for joining us today. I so appreciate you. I tell you all the time, I love you. Everything for what you do. I appreciate you. This woman has an ability to reach people. Her heart, the way she cares. You hear it through her conversation, her redirection, the perspective she gives. Listen, every time, and I know we have we also work in the field together. So she's I'm a service provider. I do the housing piece, and she do the brain. She do the mind and the heart. She does that piece. And I know there's a family. When I think of anybody who misses your therapy appointments, I promise you, I'm like, they do not know what they're missing. They're not trying to get right. Right. They're not trying to get right, because I know what you have to offer. You are an amazing vessel, and when you speak, y'all gonna hear. So let's just get into it.
No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure here, right? All the pressure is here, okay? Because I just love you. I love your gift. I love your ability. And so we connected. Like I said, we met in the field. We service foster care, but she serviced a broader spectrum. But I service youth and families in the foster care field. We work on reunification, developing and life skills so that they can be their best in society. And this amazing woman, on some of my families and some of my youth, she is their therapist. She gets that mind right. And so I'm honored to have you here today.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's get this going, honey.
Okay, let's go.
All right. So I want you to first start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay. So as you stated, my name is Maria Amarante. My middle name is Inocencia.
Inocencia.
Yeah. So when people address me as Maria, I'm like, I must know you from my childhood, because if I met you within the last 20 years, you don't even know Maria. Right. You either know Dr. A, Dr. Amarante, or Inocencia.
How do I know Maria then?
Girl, I must have just like slipped it in there. Like,
and I remembered.
You got past the barrier. For real.
Because it's always been Dr. A. Dr. A, Dr. A. Mm-hmm. I just felt compelled, like, they don't know this is Dr. Maria Amarante.
Right. So a little bit about me. Well, first I want to start. Every time that I have the opportunity to connect with any audience, I always have to big up my city. I'm from Paterson, New Jersey. Period. That's where I was born and raised. Paterson is very similar to Milwaukee as far as diversity and struggles, people of color. My family is from the Dominican Republic, and they moved here to, my father and mom moved here to start a life, and I was the first person born in the United States out of my family.
Nice.
And I when I tell you, like, we lived paycheck to paycheck, poverty was it, like living without electricity as a child.
And I met your mom. She is beautiful.
Thank you.
I'll never forget the taco with the olives.
Oh,
I still remember that.
Thank you.
Whenever she make it again, just call me.
That's right. My mom is an amazing cook.
She is.
So a little bit more about me. I decided to pursue higher education in psychology. I have my doctorate degree in educational psychology. I worked as a therapist in a prison for 5 years in Illinois. And the reason I actually did my dissertation on rehabilitative counseling and super maximum prisons. And I was just really curious about what is it that happens to individuals when they go to prison and they serve long-term sentences. Like, what happens in there? Like, I knew of like this place that, there's a bunch of fences around it and there's wires all around the top, but like, what happens in there? And why is it that individuals that I know from my community who have been in jail, serve long sentences, only to come back to reoffend? And I was curious about that. So when I decided to pursue my doctorate degree, I said, I want to go in there. I want to see what's happening in there. And what I quickly learned is that just like we are oppressed as people of color here in our communities, inmates are oppressed in prison settings. Wow. They're not given adequate access to mental health, and they're treated like second-class citizens. They are labeled by their crime, and not only do staff treat them poorly, but other inmates treat individuals poorly, depending on what the crime while you're there.
Sure.
So many inmates deal with a lot of pain, depression, guilt that is never resolved. And so the reason they come back out to reoffend again is because that stuff was never dealt with. That stuff, all of that. So after I graduated with my doctorate in 2007, I decided to continue my work in the prison setting. And then after working in the prison setting as a paid clinician, I quickly learned that just like inmates are oppressed, people of color who work in settings like that sometimes are oppressed. I was one of them. Wow. And I got tired of it. And I was like, I want to work somewhere where I don't have to be angry. I don't have to be on a defense all the time. When I pull into the parking lot, I don't have to lower my music because I'm listening to hip hop, R&B, and it's like right away I'm pulling into the parking lot. Let me lower the music. I have to present a certain way because if I don't present a certain way, I'm not respected.
Yeah.
And after a while, that gets tiring.
Sure.
So I've been working in the field for about 20 years.
Nice.
I'm a lot older than what I look, although some of you might think I look old, but
you look
yeah,
amazing.
I've been working in the field for about 20 years, and I now am the clinical director of the Multicultural Trauma and Addiction Treatment Center of Wisconsin. We have 3 offices here in Wisconsin, and we literally just opened up a branch in New Jersey. So little by little, we're trying to, explore and go out into different states of the United States of America and just do the work. There's a lot of work to be done.
Absolutely. And let me just say this, y'all, like, she being modest right now. She's the director. She's a director founder. Like, she being real modest right now. But I was there the first branch, the first office she opened, which was on Mayfair Road.
Yeah.
Prior to that, you were working at Family Options, right? Yep. So I witnessed her transition. I witnessed her elevation and how she evolved into a business. I mean, you've always been a businesswoman, but evolved into your own. But yeah, and then to hear, and I do remember even when you opened up that branch, I do remember the New Jersey branch. And then when I talked to you, you told me like you're in the process of you're doing that. And I'm like, wow, like I just love it when people don't just talk about doing something, but you actually do it. That says a lot. Like faith without works is dead. You know what I mean? If you're not activating your faith and believing that, faith is the substance of things hoped for. It's the evidence of things that are unseen. So if you can't believe the things that you can't see, then your faith is dead.
Right.
But work your faith, and I love how you are working your faith. Like you working it.
I mean, it's an assignment. I strongly believe that everyone in this world, you and I, individuals watching us, everyone has a specific assignment for them. And unfortunately, some people live in this world and die and do not fulfill that assignment, never are in touch with that. I know that the reason why my creator created me was to serve people and to help people overcome and to heal. I know that. I know that when you called me and you asked me if I would, agree to come and have this conversation with you, that like God put it in your heart because there's a specific message that he's going to give.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be religious. I'm just
Please,
I am
this
who
is a
I
Christian,
am,
This is a Christian channel. Be free.
Okay. So yeah, just like I just know that it's an assignment, and I don't have like a script. I'm just going to speak from my heart and from my mind and from my experiences, and in hopes that those of you tuning in can find healing, can find direction, can find a way out, can find connection. So yeah.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about that at the last episode 3. My cousin, because she works at Sojourner Family Peace House or Sojourner Peace House, and we talked about having an assignment and a job at the same time, and that is definitely her. So yeah, when you talk about that, I'm a strong believer too. Like a job can be a job, but sometimes that job is your assignment. It's where God have you planted. It's where you're going to be your most valued and most needed. You know what I mean? So when you said that, I was like, yeah, she tapping into episode 3. So Dr. A we're going to be talking a lot about, of course, we know sexual trauma. So Dr. A is here, and today we're going to be talking about the impact of the untold narratives around sexual trauma. And so she's here to give us her professional perspective, give us some professional insight. And you guys are going to hear she is powerful at what she does. So first thing I want to ask you is, what does sexual trauma or sexual abuse, what does it do to the brain?
Okay. I'm going to talk in general first, and then I'll tie it into sexual trauma.
Okay.
So when I think about what does trauma, the impact of trauma on the brain, on us, what comes to mind is our bodies is our brain is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when a woman gives birth to a child, and the as soon as the child is you know brought to the mother, and it knows to, like, when for its first feeding, like, you put the breast and it literally knows to start sucking.
Yeah.
That's just how the brain knows, like, when it experiences trauma, it knows that it needs to do something so that you can be able to function day to day. It rewires itself.
Mm.
It fills in the gap,
Mm-hmm.
so that we are able to wake up and have interactions with individuals. It rewires us. The brain rewires us so that we can feel safe, or it places thoughts in our mind so that we can account for whatever it is that we experience. So it's really amazing how the brain works.
Yeah.
And just how the brain works, your body is connected to your brain. And for every traumatic experience, including sexual trauma,
Mm-hmm.
that we have, our body keeps a score.
Mm.
So it's really interesting because there has been many, studies done and research that focuses on the body keeping the score.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what that means is that you may experience a traumatic event in your life at the age of 5 and not have the words to talk about what happened to you, but your body remembers 100%. Your body remembers. And what happens is you continue, obviously you go through the lifespan depending on what age you are. You're a child, and adolescent, and an adult. um, and as your body has rewired itself, it knows, like, okay, so if you were bruised, an emotional bruising, if you will, that rewiring knows to go over that bruise and go around and go over it, right? And what happens is, until you stop and heal that, then you create a narrative about life. You create a narrative about yourself.
Yeah.
And your position in life, and your position within relationships. That's why I tell my clients, as a therapist, as a trauma therapist, I find myself educating clients all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder, am I a trauma therapist or am I an educator?
Yeah.
Because I'm doing both,
yeah,
literally simultaneously.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And what I think about is, when you have a client, let's say, who has experienced drug addiction, right? And let's say a client who has experienced drug addiction at a young age, they start experimenting with drugs. If that drug addiction is not addressed as a child, then what you have is an adolescent and an adult who is still addicted to substances, who still does not know how to navigate through life without that substance.
Okay.
If a child learns um, that they need to defend themselves when they're in danger, then as a child, and that isn't retaught, then that child grows up to be an adult who feels that they need to defend themselves when in danger, and they learn how to defend themselves based on what they see. So when you have someone who has experienced sexual trauma, what happens is that person begins to tell themselves a story about what happened to them. And many of the times that story is a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie, but it's their truth, but it's a lie. The lie is that you deserve this. You made this. You were the cause of this. The lie is that you could have avoided it. You could have avoided it.
That may be the biggest one.
Yes. The lie is that you were doomed for this. Like this was going to happen eventually. The lie is that people that look like you, this happens to, or individuals that are born into your family. Like, what did you expect? It happened to your mama. It happened to your auntie. It happened to your cousin. Those are all lies, right? Now, the truth is that this happens.
Sure.
And many times, individuals that experience sexual trauma, either consciously or subconsciously, do not address that it happens. So they either don't talk about it,
yeah,
or their brain literally tucks it away, and some individuals don't remember the details of it, because that's the part of the rewiring part that I talked about.
And is that a form of, because I had a guest on, which we had to take it down, the video down, because of privacy concerns, but she talked about repression. Is that repressive cycle?
Yeah, that's an example. That's also like a defense mechanism. You know, we literally block. Our brain is so amazing and powerful.
Yeah,
it blocks things out so that we can function.
Would you call that survival mode?
Mode? Yes, it is a survival mode.
Survival, and I'm curveballing right now, and you kind of answered one of my questions. But is survival mode safe? And if it is it?
I appreciate. Okay, so I appreciate that, because survival mode is safe. You know, there's how and I may need your help here. Like in the Bible, it talks about, like, there's a time, there's a season
in Ecclesiastics for everything.
Right? So survival mode serves its purpose. Right? Now, what happens is that you're not supposed to stay in survival mode forever.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
So I know that you and I talked about this when we were processing, like, what the topic was going to be and what you were looking for. And I forgot the question that you asked about the impact of trauma. The lasting effects. Yeah, the lasting effects of trauma. And then I gave an analogy that literally came to me. That was the first time that I used that analogy. Okay?
Look at God. Yeah.
And what I said was that when individuals experience sexual trauma or trauma, it's very similar to, like, having someone shoot you, like having a bullet enter your body. And what happens is that you experience that organ, whatever organ it is that was shot. Like, it could be a lung, it could be your arm, right, your bicep, it could be, your liver, it could be your kidney, it could be your stomach, right? Whatever organ it was is damaged, like, right on impact. Right? The situation. Now, when someone experiences sexual trauma, when it's left untreated, right? Because we talked about survival mode being for a season. What happens is that if you stay in that season, you may stay in that season and be a victim, continue to be a victim from one season to the next. However, you're in here, right? But behind here, there's a bunch of other organs that are being impacted by that one, because that one organ wasn't meant to be disabled. The reason that every organ has a purpose in your body, right? So if that organ is not functioning right, then it's not doing its job and it's not helping the surrounding organ, right? So then what happens is that other organs are then impacted, right? So how I understand sexual trauma is that it's until you remove that bullet. As a therapist, my job is not necessarily to heal every organ. My job is to help the client remove that bullet so that they can heal themselves, because individuals are so powerful. Like, we really can heal ourselves, but we need certain things. We need effective, healthy coping skills. We need to change our narrative. We need to change how we see ourselves in relationships. We need to identify our strengths. All of those things help us heal. And if you don't have access to that, then what you do is almost, another analogy that's coming to me is almost like if you're brushing your teeth and you stop brushing, right? Then eventually you're going to get a cavity, and guess what? That cavity is going to decay. You're going to then need a root canal, and then guess what? then eventually you're going to have to get the tooth extracted, right?
Yeah.
And then the gums are going to be, so
Yeah.
it's
It's this
like, it's the
constant.
domino effect,
Yeah.
right? So I talked about initially the body keeping a score. Your body does keep a score.
Okay.
Your body holds on to that anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Individuals who suffered sexual trauma also have issues with their body, pain in their body, pain in their knees, pain like lower back pain, high blood
Is
pressure,
this a
all of
real
that
pain or is this a mental pain?
is a real
It's
pain.
a real pain. Okay.
It's a real pain.
Okay.
It's connected. Like your body is like is a organism that needs like all parts to work in harmony in order for it to
Mm,
be effective and to be healthy.
okay. Wow, like,
Hmm.
whoo, that was a lot. But you went into, you were talking about, why some, the guilt, some of the results from being sexually abused and when they don't speak up.
Hmm.
And that was one of the questions I wanted to ask is, and I know some of the overcomers and first of all, going back to the survivor mode, let me
Hmm.
retract a little bit. Here on the Victim to Victor podcast, we refer to all of our guests as overcomers because I did learn when I as I was building and putting this together, I wanted to make sure that the language was right and it made sense to who I am and
Hmm.
my message in life as a woman of God. And I understand an overcomer is one who has defeated. Now I know trauma, and I think we talked about this a little bit. There is really no real, I'm not saying they can't heal from trauma, but there's no cure for trauma. There it is. There's no cure for trauma. And it doesn't, and I'm not saying that also, we have to live in survival mode, but we learn to defeat those odds. And sometimes you got to defeat those odds every single awakening day, even when triggers come.
Hmm.
So we refer to all of our guests as overcomers.
Hmm.
I stray away from using survivor, this is a sexual assault survivor. No, we refer to them as overcomers because the concept is we want to really send that message of defeating
Hmm.
the odds of being traumatized, which is those lasting effects.
Hmm.
They don't have to be lasting effects.
Hmm.
And you talked about that self healing. That's where, and I think of this lady all the time, Iala Van Zant.
Hmm.
She put the language together. Do the work,
Hmm.
right? We all have work to do in our lives
Hmm.
every single day. You know what I mean? And even when another conversation we had when you talked about the body, it alters.
Hmm.
That bullet that enters, it alters the body,
Hmm.
and until that bullet is removed, then the body can not necessarily return back to its original state, but it will return back to a state where it can actually function.
Hmm.
So what is that silence? Because that's the reason, that's the purpose of this podcast. And some other guests have talked about it in the past, the shame and the guilt that's not theirs,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But I really, really do want to understand as much as we can from a clinical perspective that silence. Like, why do people keep silent when
Yeah.
they're sexually abused?
So the reason why many individuals um, choose silence is because it's so heavy. The experience is so heavy, and they don't want to be judged. Telling their story,
Yeah,
it is tricky because you don't necessarily know how the individual is going to respond.
yeah,
Whoever you share your experience
yeah,
with, are they going to embrace you? Are they going to love on you? Are they going to tell you those things that it wasn't your fault? Are they going to speak life into you?
yeah.
Or the other pieces, sometimes it's so heavy that we don't want to put that on others
Oh my goodness, yes.
because
Yeah,
we know that as being a victim of sexual trauma, what happens is we don't want to put that on someone else.
yeah,
So suffering in silence or choosing that silence, what it does, it not only protects that person from what their perception of how others are going to respond, but
yeah.
you're also protecting
The
others from like, can they carry this load because this is really heavy.
Ooh. That is so deep you said that because I've heard that and I know, listen, y'all, she has not watched, she just learned about my podcast, what, a few days
Mhm.
ago.
Mhm.
So she has not watched the previous episodes. And so I talk about it in, I think it's in episode 1, where there was a person who I was speaking with who had experienced sexual trauma in their youth, and it was by their stepdad.
Mhm.
And I got furious. Listen, this was some years ago. I was very furious when I learned this, and she's like, the person said, I haven't told my mom. No, no, God will not tell my mom. And in my head, I'm like, why not? Because not, she doesn't need to know that. And I walked away from that conversation upset, like, so you chose to protect your mother when it was you the one that need protection. So when you talked about that protection, you know what I mean? Protecting the person.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Whoever could be impacted by this, you're protecting them. And the sad thing is, it's a false narrative.
And the other piece too is not only are you protecting others, but you're also there's so much to figure out that it makes sense to just remain silent because you're also thinking you don't know how long it's going to take for you to overcome this.
Yeah.
So this person that you tell is this person going to stick around?
Sure.
Are they going to be there when you wake up in the middle of the night with a nightmare? Are they going to be there when or during the day when everyone decides to go out on an outing, but you don't want to go out? And is that person going to choose to go on the outing, or are they going to stay back and stay with you and help you, and just comfort you? So staying silent, it makes it is less of a burden. You need, as someone who has experienced sexual trauma, you need to know that whoever you share your story with, your experience with, are they capable of riding this thing out for however long it takes?
I get that.
At any time of the day, at any time of the night.
Yeah.
And you don't know that. That's too much to figure out.
Man, that's so true. I never thought about it that way. I can actually see the burden of that. Like, and especially when you think about a child. For a child to carry that responsibility, I think you talked about that earlier, they have to now figure out a way, how do I protect myself? And if silence is a form of, if it seems right to to be silent, if this is going to protect me, then just remain silent, right? That is a different perspective. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, I remember when I went to college and I had to take a sex ed class in college. And I remember going into the classroom and my professor putting newspaper, because the classroom that we were in had doors with like glass, like a little thing where you could look inside of the classroom. And that day she put newspaper over the glass part, and I was like, oh, I wonder what we're doing today, right? So she closes the door, and then she literally shows us a video of two people having sex. Now it's not like it was really interesting because it was two people having sex, but it was an educational video. Like it showed the penis going inside the vagina, and then it named it a shaft, and like it gave the educational terminology to intercourse, right?
Okay.
What happens to the body, like when it is aroused, all of these things. And I'm watching this, and then I'm looking around the classroom to see, like, yo, like, we really watching this, right?
Right.
But everyone is watching it with what appears to me with the lens of, I'm looking at this through the educational, right? Sure. We know we're going to be tested on it. We know that the terminology in this video, we're going to be tested on. And then I start looking around, and then all of a sudden, boom, a memory comes to my mind. A memory that I had when I was young. I must have been 4 or 5 years old, and my mom took me to my neighbor's home, and my neighbor's husband, I was laying on the bed, and he came in the room with a washcloth, and he started wiping my private area. Okay. And I remember that I faked it and I acted like I was asleep because I wanted him to stop, and I felt like if I act like I was asleep, he will stop. And then I started having another memory. Boom, I'm in this classroom now.
Yeah.
And I'm having all these memories of stuff that happened to me that I had blocked. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. So I excused myself out of the classroom, and I called my mother, and I'm crying in the hallway, and I was like, Mommy, I got to tell you something. I'm so sorry, but this is what happened to me. And I was like, when I was a little girl and you took us to the next door neighbor's house, there was one time that he asked me to come over, and he offered me this dessert, and I remember him having me sit on his lap, and all of a sudden his lap started shaking really, really bad. And then I remember like having to scoot up off of him, and when I went like this on his lap, my hand had all this slimy stuff on it, right?
Oh
And then my mother started crying, and then I'm
my
like, I just remembered this now,
God.
like in college, and this
Yeah.
happened when I was a child, right?
Wow.
So that's one of the things that had like in my mind, like as a child, when that happened, like I remember now, like when that happened and I
Yeah.
scooted up off of him, I knew something as a child knew that when I left the house and went back to my mom's house, to my house, that I could not tell my mom
Wow.
because I knew that I remember my mom is a very assertive individual. She will put you in your
She
place.
would have handled
I
it.
knew my mother would have handled it.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
something about that as a child registered, no, I'm going to protect mom. Mom doesn't need to know this.
Oh, wow.
That's how, as a child, that's how I understood it.
That's how probably most kids
Yeah. So as
understand
a
it.
therapist now, having little kids come into treatment, and sometimes we know right away during the intake that I'm treating a child who has sexualized behaviors. They play with themselves, or when they go on play dates or in the classroom or in daycare, they're caught humping a toy or humping another person.
Sure. Yeah.
I know what I'm dealing with, right? So I go into psychoeducation mode. I know that my client needs to feel safe. I know that that child needs for me to have a trauma informed setting,
Sure.
right? And what this child doesn't need is for me to tell them, you're wrong, stop doing this.
Absolutely.
They don't need judgment. They need to feel understood. They need to be taught a different way, right? They need to understand what happened to their body.
Sure.
They need to understand why their certain parts of their body is aroused.
Why is it? Why did
and
it
they
respond?
need to know how to deal with that arousal now that it's been awakened. There's certain parts of your body that shouldn't have been awoken at that age, but isn't. So what do we do now? Do we act like it isn't, or do we have these conversations in a kid-like way so that they don't feel judged and so that they get it, right? So that we interrupt that trauma.
That's it.
That cycle, right?
Yeah.
That's a child. But then when you have an adult who comes in who has either victimized someone else, because that's something that also happens as a sexual someone who has experienced sexual trauma, it's not unlikely for them not to repeat that, right? So this is the reason why it's so important to address it when it happens, because the longer you take, the impact is like I talked about in the body.
Sure. It's like
that's the impact of them. Like now, not only is it affecting them, but now it's affecting their relationships, their how they interact with others, their expectations, what they deem as normal.
Ooh, a little distorted.
They think it's normal. Oh, that person wanted to touch my private area. My dad did it. My grandpa did it.
You brought so much clarity. You brought a totally different perspective on when the body is awakened at the stage of a child. And this is kind of going along with the silence. Me trying to understand why do people stay silent? Why? And one of the things what comes to mind is, and I don't know, this is something I always ask anyone who has been abused, like, would you say, did you feel guilty because your body responded? You know what I mean? Did you feel and because your body responded, it didn't feel bad, right? Like,
well, it depends, right? Because some people, some individuals, certain parts of their bodies, if you will, are awakened, or they're now sensitive. They can make a connection between a thought and an action, and then there's a feeling. Well, if a child is raped, they may not have an arousal. It may be a painful situation, right? So, but then as they get older, they don't focus on the pain. They focus on that part of the body.
Wow.
So they'll get very creative on how to respond to that part of the body.
Wow.
Yeah. So so again, I just want to keep going back to how our brain rewires itself, and it
Yeah.
does what it needs to do so that it can survive in the moment. And what it needs, it needs a pause. It needs a pause, and it needs time to like put words to things.
Sure.
Put words into a redirection, if you will.
That's good. Thank you. I appreciate that. I probably, when I have that conversation now, it'll be totally different because me trying to understand the silence, me trying to understand what is this guilt that they feel. And it's in my head, it's like, well, maybe because their body responded and because it didn't hurt, it maybe it felt good and they thought it was right, knowing it was wrong. All of those things, those are my perceptions, again, trying to understand, especially with both of my daughters being violated. I'm trying to understand my daughters. And even when you talked about, that victim mindset, yes, I see it.
And I remember, working someplace, and I was working with a child who had been sexually abused. And I remember going into the bathroom. It was a public bathroom in this building. And I walked into the bathroom, and this kid is laying on the floor of the bathroom masturbating.
Whoa.
And as soon as I saw it, like it was like shock, but then instantly I knew, what does this kid need? This kid does not need to be judged.
Yes.
This kid does not need me to yell, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What this kid needs for me is to close the door, let him know I'm standing behind this door.
Okay.
I need you to please stand up.
That's good.
I need you to put your pants on and wash your hands. And I'll be standing out here when you're done. And then after they did that, then we went into the therapy, and then we talked about what happened here.
Right.
Somewhere along in his mind, he learned that they taught him, do not play with yourself in public settings. Go to the bathroom. Well, in his mind, he was like, he's in a bathroom, right? So I wanted to like talk. Imagine if I would have went in there and shunned him and judged him, right?
Yeah.
So there's just so many ways. Like we can be. The world is so judgmental, judgmental, and because the world can be so judgmental, individuals are stuck in a lifespan. Like what happened to you as a child. You may be 50 years old, but what happened to you at 5, 10, 15 years old, there's still part of you that's stuck there.
Yeah. I call it, and I talk a little bit about this in my book, not particularly around sexual trauma, but any form of trauma that we experience in our life. I typically call it, or not necessarily give it a name, but it's our subconscious. It's a cluttered subconscious. Like we think that it left us, but really you're carrying it in your subconscious mind, and that's literally what's dictating your view. You kind of talked about that. You expounded on that in the beginning, but it kind of dictates how you see the world around you, how you respond. That really it stems from the clutter in the back of your mind. So yeah, I kind of highlight signs of when you know your subconscious is cluttered, and then I talk about steps on how to declutter.
Okay.
Yeah, like I feel like it was my own epiphany when I wrote that. I wrote it from my own experience. And it was years ago because I started writing my book in 2019, and it was years ago when I had this experience. And it was a Tuesday night because I remember I had church, and I was an adjutant serving the pastor's wife, and I was so at awe when we were leaving. Church was over. I think it was that day when I had the epiphany, and I was like, oh my gosh, so something must have happened. I really can't recall the scenario, but I just remember like, that's not real. That's in my head. That's like in my subconscious. And I remember like, this thing has been with me all this time because I whatever had happened, it kept happening. I'm like, I got some stuff in my subconscious mind that I need to clean out. And I shared it with her that night. We were walking, and I'm telling you, girl, I was a talking machine. She had just finished preaching herself. And it's like I'm walking with her preaching again. And it's like it was a moment that I had like, man, that subconscious is powerful.
Yeah.
If we're not careful to keep it, clear, it's powerful. It can really dictate and control how you see the world and how you move in the world around you.
Yeah.
It's powerful. Man, this is good. This is good,
Yeah.
Dr. A. So I want to talk about some triggers based on your level of training and skill. What are some of the triggers? And it sounds like you may have touched on a little bit of it. What are some
Okay.
triggers you've seen with some clients?
So when you say triggers, I'm assuming that you're wanting me to give voice to things that might happen that might take that person back. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying? Okay.
absolutely.
So many things can be triggers,
Okay.
Miss Sherie. So a sound, a smell, um, a tone of voice
Wow.
can be a trigger. Um, Literally, a time of the year can be a trigger. I talk to my clients about, how a lot of individuals feel that, oh, the holidays are such a great thing. Thanksgiving is so great. Christmas is so great. Actually, those can be trigger
For some
moments for some
people,
people
wow.
because this is the time where family or when individuals should be happy, should feel loved, but individuals who have experienced sexual trauma, they're not happy. Some of them are not happy. Some of them um, don't want to be around people. So those the holidays can be triggers. Celebrations can be
That's
triggers.
so good to know because, like you said, this is a happy time. If you got a child that's not happy every time this season comes,
Yeah, yeah.
it's time to have a conversation.
Yeah. Um, the whatever anniversary dates are triggers.
Mm.
You know, I think I talked to you about how, I'm not going to go into detail, but like with me, when I experienced a certain trauma in my life, um, this happened May 4th of 2021 for
Mm-hmm,
me.
mm-hmm,
Okay.
mm-hmm,
And I can tell you that, Sherie, just like the Bible is divided in two,
mm-hmm,
before Christ and after Christ,
mm-hmm.
there is a Dr. Amarante from birth until May 4th of 2021, that life, and then there's the afterlife, like my
Mm.
life now, like that's a trigger. Like the anniversary date is a trigger for me. Just how individuals grieve
Yeah,
a loss of a loved
on
one,
certain
and a
days.
certain day, like the anniversary date can be right, like really traumatic. Well, what do we learn? That when you do the work,
Mm-hmm,
the anniversary date takes a different feel. Is
mm-hmm.
no longer a grief, it's a celebration of life, right?
Yeah. See.
So that's similar to in treatment. When you do the work, that anniversary date doesn't have to take on that meaning.
Mm-hmm,
Now, I will say that for me, my life, there's a before that May 4th, 2021,
mm-hmm.
and May 4th, after, there's parts of my life that I will never get back.
Sure.
And sure, I think about it all the time. Like, gosh, like I have conversation with God. Like, God, why did you choose me? Like,
Yeah.
all of this good that I'm putting into the world,
Sure.
I'm following your
I feel
assignment.
you.
I'm a therapist. I'm doing all of these things. Like, why did you choose me to be victimized like this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you chose the wrong one. And then I'll look up, like, thinking like he's gonna come down from the ceiling and be like, "Girl,
Right.
I don't question me. I know what I'm doing." But I'm like, "No, for real, dude. Like, you may have messed up on this one. Like, I don't think I'm not the one. Like, you made a mistake here.
Right.
Like, especially at this age in my life. Like, come on, dude. Like, why
Yeah.
you choose me?" And it's like there's a lot of whys and there's a lot of like questions about decision making of my higher powers decision making. And
Sure.
then as I've been in treatment now, I get to look at myself through a different lens.
Amazing.
And because of what happened to me, now I get to heal the parts of
Mm.
me, the 5-year-old me, the 9-year-old
Oh,
me.
that's so good. Which is why he made. Which is why.
Girl, now,
Not
like,
saying he allowed it,
right,
but
yeah,
I
like,
get that.
now, I'm gonna be honest. Like,
Mm-hmm.
every therapist needs a therapist. Okay,
Yes,
we need to be a client
I agree.
at some point. And I remember, going through school and being forced to be a client. And like, I'm like, okay, did I fulfill my assignment with the professor? Like, because we had to in my doctorate program, you literally had to go to the counseling center on campus
Mm-hmm.
and sign up for at least 8 sessions of therapy.
Oh, wow.
So we had to, if not, we wouldn't complete the program.
Sure.
So I did it and I was like, all right, I'm done, right? I did it to complete the assignment. I didn't do it with, I wasn't giving this therapist access to what happened to me.
Which is what a lot of kids do.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm being here, cool. But then when this situation happened to me, and I knew that I was a clinical director of this agency, and I knew that, you know, my clients deserve for me to be present, because I was in sessions with them, looking at them and like telling myself, God, please, like, this is about them. I don't want to fail them. Like, silence this thought, Lord, silence this thought, silence this emotion. I want to be there for my client. And I was so like committed to being there for my client, and God was like, you need healing. And now that I'm going through the process, I've revisited the 5-year-old me, the 9-year-old me. Yesterday I had therapy. I revisited the 36-year-old me, the 27-year-old me, and had that trauma not taken place, girl, I would have been like, I ain't sitting in nobody's chair. I'm too busy. I'm a clinical director. I'm a supervisor. I got to see clients. I have to do billing. I have to do payroll. I have to, girl, don't nobody got time for that. So guess what? I was humbled. I was humbled. And now, because I've experienced this, I could give my clients more of what they need.
Exactly.
Right? Like, I know what they need because I've been there. You know what I'm saying? Without judgment. I knew it before, but I know it now. Like, I'm in there.
Yeah. Especially after your childhood experience, tying all that together. So powerful. Oh my God. Like,
did I answer your question?
You did, because even when you mentioned some of the triggers, your perspective was so clear. I thought about this, and tell me if this is a trigger. I believe it is. So in the Catholic Church, there was a lot of abuse towards children, and when you think about the attire of the Catholic Church, of the priests, they wore the white collars and the black clothing, right? So I was ordained as an assistant pastor, I believe it's in 2016. And we had to wear that white collar at the ordination service, and we had to wear it like first Sunday. And though I'm not Catholic, I didn't go to a Catholic church, but when I put that collar on, I felt so weird.
Really?
I did. I was just thinking, like, this triggers people. Could that be a trigger?
Yes, girl.
Right? Am I thinking
right? No, you are.
I had this indignation. Like, I'm telling you, at the end of service, when service was done, like, oh, I would, because I had to wear it under the ordinance of the church. I would rip it off, like, and just shove it in my purse.
So I'm going to tell you, this just came to me too, that what's a trigger is anything that's going to connect you to that experience.
Oh my
goodness. And anything can connect you to that. Anything. And every experience is so personal.
Yeah.
So what may be a trigger for you may not be a trigger for me.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
Or we can put it into themes and say, this time of the year, your time may be, your anniversary day. My time may be a holiday.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you could break it up into themes.
Sure.
Now, I also want to give voice to this victim to victor, right?
Okay.
So, actually, I'm going to wait because I know one of the questions that you're going to ask, and I'll tie it in.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. That's all right. So let's keep it moving. So, like, and you know what? I feel like you're such an amazing interviewee. Like, you probably touched on this a little bit, but I want you to go a little bit maybe deeper in it or stay on the topic. After childhood rape or marital rape, how can one move forward with healing so that they can have a healthy relationship or maybe even a healthy second marriage?
Yeah. So after childhood rape or marital rape, moving forward really means pausing, like from the time that you recognize that this happened and admitted that it happened.
Gotcha.
Because Sherie, it's not like this happened and you wake up the next day and you say, this happened.
Yeah.
Some people, it takes time for them to admit that this happened and really even recognize the impact of this happening, right? So once you identify that this happened, how to move forward is identifying a way out. The beauty of this thing is that there's so many options of a way out. Some people find a way out in religion, in relationship with God, going to church, having a relationship with the congregation, right? Some people are like, hell no, we won't go. I'm not going into the church because I've heard of how judgmental the church is, right? That's the last place I'm going to go into a church. They're already judging sinners. The last thing I need is somebody to judge me, right? So the other ways out, of course, I'm going to talk about therapy. Identifying every client is looking for different things in a therapist, right? So sometimes you break it down to gender. They want a male or female clinician. Then you go into like ethnicity of the clinician, age of the clinician, expertise of the clinician. The thing is, I tell clients all the time, if you go into treatment and it doesn't feel right, it's like buying a pair of shoes. You went to the store and they felt right in the store, because you ain't gonna walk out the store with some uncomfortable shoes, right? For the most part, we're not. But then what happens? You come home and you're like, wait a second, this thing didn't feel good. But you wear it after a couple of wearings, and it's like, okay, it's comfortable. But if you put them on again and again and they're not comfortable, you toss them. You're not gonna keep wearing them. You're gonna mess around and get a bunion, or some the core. Something's gonna happen, right? You're not gonna be uncomfortable all day long. You're gonna stop wearing them. You're gonna go back to the store and buy another one, or get another shoe that's comfortable. What I tell clients with therapy, if that relationship is not producing that safety zone for you, if not is not producing that connection, we need a connection. A client that has been a victim of a rape or a sexual offense, you need connection. You need the absence of judgment. You need someone who you believe in, and if you don't get that right away, it's okay to try on another pair of shoes.
Oh, that's good.
Your voice matters, right? So, you know what? Maybe you were trying on Nikes. Let's try on something else, right? Because the Nikes wasn't working. Let's try some Adidas. Or you know what? Those Adidas weren't working. Maybe I need this other shoe. Maybe I need Crocs. I thought I needed Nikes and Adidas, but I really need slip-ons now, right? There's always going to be an option for you. As a matter of, are you willing to do the work? If I'm going to tell you this, that this answer to this question, how do you get through it? I hate to say it. I'm going to tell you something that many people may not want to hear, but the only way to get through it is to get through it, to do the work. You have to do the work. So either finding a connection in church, in therapy. You know what? Some people may not feel like, oh, therapy is not for me. Okay. So there's other things that you can do. You can journal. You can, now with, 2023 versus 2000, there's so many social media. There's so many ways that you could connect to an audience. There's virtual group sessions that you can attend where, you can keep your camera off and participate, listen to other people tell their story and find healing in that. There's different websites that you could go to find a connection. It's all about finding a connection, and really with the intention of healing. You have to have that intention of healing. That's good. Because here's the thing, like sometimes individuals want to be connected but don't want to heal.
They don't want to address.
They don't want to address. It's almost like when you have individuals who use drugs, they go to these AA meetings and they go to these meetings, but what do? They just congregate with other users, and they find other users to hang out with, to use some more, versus what are we doing here? What is the intention here?
What real work are we doing?
What is the intention here? So websites, therapy, church, finding different groups that may not necessarily be religious in its foundation, but
Yeah,
can
it's
offer you
supportive.
healing,
Yeah.
right? Support groups that are out there. And really, I just really want to invite you,
Mm-hmm.
the listener, to consider um, really listening to your inner voice and what your yourself is telling you. Like, that at some point it's tiring to carry this load. It's
Mm-hmm.
so heavy.
Mm-hmm.
It's so heavy. It's so heavy. And you deserve to live an amazing life. You deserve to live a life full of joy. You deserve to live in the walk in the shoes of excellence, like whatever excellence feels like for you. And yes, absolutely, a second marriage can work.
Mm-hmm.
It can be created.
Mm-hmm.
You're the author, right?
Yeah,
It can
that's
be
good.
created. Now, you're gonna keep writing the same script
Mm-hmm.
if you don't read a different book.
Oh, that's
You're
good.
gonna write the same script if you don't exercise a different muscle.
Yeah.
You're gonna write the same script if you don't feed yourself something different.
Yeah.
So sometimes doing the uncomfortable is
Yeah.
what you need in order to get that breakthrough.
Yeah. So good. Man, that was delicious. I love that intentional. Be intentional
Mm-hmm.
with healing.
Mm-hmm.
That might be a t-shirt I might have to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
because
because
that's
so a lot of times that intent. Let me show you the difference between intention.
okay.
Many times, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like smell goods?
Yes.
Do you like candles?
So.
Do you like lotions that smell good?
Yes.
Do you like um like sprays around the house to
Mm-hmm.
smell good?
Yeah.
Now, when you put the lotion on in your body,
Mm-hmm.
when you put it on, I would guess that every time you put it on, you
Mm-hmm.
don't tell yourself, "Ooh, this is aromatherapy. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna put this lotion because it smells so good, and when I smell it, it's gonna take me to a place of calmness."
No, I just put it
Sometimes
on.
you put it on, it's like you smelt it at the store. You're like, "Oh, I'm taking this home."
That's
And when
it.
I'm around people in meetings and I
Yeah.
greet them, they're gonna
They're
smell
gonna
me,
smell it.
right?
Yep. That's
Now
it.
here's the difference.
Okay.
Someone can pick up that same bottle of lotion
Mm-hmm.
with the intention of aromatherapy. I'm going to use this to calm my spirit.
Ah.
And when they put it on, they were stressing and they're like, "Oh, I need some of this that my therapist taught me," or I know that I need something to take me away from these intrusive thoughts
Mm-hmm.
because I just smelled something that reminded me of
Oh, that's good.
my trauma. So
Get
I
that.
know that the smell of lavender or eucalyptus is going to take me away from that. So when I put it on, it's going to take me out of that. It's going to take
Mm-hmm.
that bullet out, right?
Yeah, I get that.
You see the difference in the
Yep, I
intention.
do.
So it's the same thing. It's just the intention behind it
Yeah. Why?
that
Okay.
makes the difference.
That's good. I get it. So it depends on what is your intentions with
Yeah.
it. Like, why are you here? If you want to heal or whatever however you want this journey to look, what are the intentions?
Mm-hmm.
So a person should be honest with themselves
Yeah.
when they start that journey. What are
Yeah.
your intentions?
And not only
specifically?
honest when you start the journey, but when you're doing things, when it has intention,
Mm-hmm.
it takes you deeper.
Yeah. Oh, I get
It
that.
takes you deeper. Like even
Take your
right now,
time.
like I'm drinking this water. You gave me water before I got here today,
Mm-hmm.
and I if I right now I know how water is so good for me,
Mm-hmm.
for my body.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew, okay, before I leave today, the intention is that I'm gonna drink this water because when the water enters my body,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna do things.
Yeah.
It's gonna cleanse me out, right?
Yeah.
When I leave here, and I park my car, I'm going to intentionally park my car so that I could get further away from where I'm going because I need the extra walk,
Yeah.
right? There's intention behind everything that I do,
Yeah.
right?
Makes sense.
The reason that I'm here, the intention is to reach an audience,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
There's an intention. So when you and I and everyone else watching this, when we embrace everything that we do with intention, our life takes on a meaning.
That's good.
It changes. Our narrative changes. Healing is created. Like, and everyone has the power. Like, you don't need a doctor in the room.
Yeah.
What you need is intention.
That's good. I love it.
Yeah.
So good, Dr. A. Thank you so much. You got me. I'm really, and I know I'm an intentional person,
Yeah.
literally in everything I do. But you really got me pondering on intentions now.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
probably won't even process it in the same. Thank you. I appreciate
Mhm.
that. Like literally
Mhm.
everything I do, my intentions behind this. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And
Mhm.
so we got a few more minutes left, and I want to ask you this final question. I heard of CBT training, the cognitive behavior training. Is that one of the most effective trauma therapeutic methods? If
Well,
so, why?
okay.
And if it's not, what's the best treatment approach? And I feel like
Okay.
you even
Yeah, yeah,
stumbled
yeah,
it already, but let's
So,
talk a little bit
so,
about CBT.
okay. So it depends who you ask, right? So
Okay.
I've had CBT training, and it really focuses on grounding, a lot of grounding work.
Okay.
However, you know, just like when you compare technology now to technology 10 years ago,
Okay.
and you think about therapy
Mm-hmm.
now versus 10 years ago, now you have new um, techniques and strategies that are in the field that have proven to be more effective.
Yep.
And trauma informed care
Is
for me is it.
the most effective.
Trauma informed care really truly takes into consideration so many different factors that create the space for healing to take place.
Okay.
CBD training, of course, like I can adapt some of the techniques from CBT. However, when I think about trauma informed care, I think about a lot of the things that many individuals take for granted, like sight, smell. Remember, we talked about the triggers?
Mm-hmm.
Trauma informed care recognizes those and accounts for those with every client.
That's good.
Right? So, because we know that if we create a safe space for our client, then they're going to be willing to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
If the client does not feel safe, they're not going to be vulnerable.
No.
You're not going to have access to the trauma if when they walk into that space, they feel like there's not a connection. They don't feel like they can let themselves like their guards down.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, so I'm all about trauma informed care.
Yeah. So you got to touch on
Oh yeah, so I was gonna touch base on victim to victor. So without going into detail, because I don't know how much of this you shared with your audience, but sometimes individuals will say, "Well, I don't know why so and so identifies as a victim. They're not a victim. They're an overcomer. They're a survivor.
Okay.
This thing happened so many years ago. Like I see them doing amazing things and they're not a victim. Why do they keep seeing themselves as a victim? They're not a victim."
Okay.
And I'm going to go and I'm going to say this to you, that identity is personal. Your identity is personal.
Okay.
And yes, the word speaks the word, right? When God talks to us, he uses his word and he labels us things, right? Overcomer, and he labels us these things because he sees us through this lens that he wants us to see ourselves, right? Because when we see ourselves the way God sees ourselves, then we're operating at our optimum.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Now, when a person has experienced sexual trauma, they are a victim until they see themselves differently.
Yeah, that's good.
Until they do the work. So now, so I want you to picture like a invisible line right here, right? Actually, let me get that pen, any pen, right? So the sexual trauma happened, and they're right here, they're behind us, right? And then like they overcome this, and now they're an overcomer, right? It is not my job. It is not your job. It is nobody's job to tell a person when they're here. It's the person who has experienced the trauma to know when they're here.
Thank you for telling me that. Yeah.
So they're here, they're on the other side of the fence or the other side of the ribbon or the identity when they see themselves as overcoming.
Okay.
Now we can speak life into people, right? We can give them the tools, but it's not until they see themselves as healed, as it's not until they identify their strengths, until they see themselves interrupting the cycle of abuse.
That's key. Yep.
That they will embrace that identity.
Sure.
And it's really important for us. Trauma informed care teaches us that we need to be really sensitive to the language that we use with our clients, even pronouns. It teaches us that even the octave of our voices, the sound in the room, all of these things is going to give clients the access to get into that side.
That's good. That is so good. Thank you. Thank you. This was like the most amazing and effective conversation. I appreciate that. You really have enlightened me so much so that I could really, I mean, I feel like God has given me the love and the patience. I've developed it over time with working with my own children, mainly my oldest daughter, because, and I, from the outside looking in, I would say that my baby is still in victim mode, right? And so that sensitive approach, and that's what I love about the trauma informed approach. It's more sensitive. So the whole time when you start talking about trauma informed, I'm hearing the word sensitive,
and
then
patience.
You said it. Yes, and then you said it's a more sensitive approach.
Yes.
Prior to the trauma informed approach, it was, what's wrong with you? Like,
yes.
And I remember, like, so I've been in the foster care field since 2005. I started doing volunteer work, and then eventually it was contractual work, and then eventually I became part of payroll. And so, yes, I was there when, if I see a girl, there was a group home for girls, and if I saw them acting up, in my head, I'm like, what is wrong with her? Literally, like, there was no sensitivity, no compassion, no patience. It was like, man, what is wrong? Like, why do they, what's the problem? And I was actually, I can't remember what year when the trauma informed approach changed, and then Rogers Memorial Health started coming out to agencies, training people to be facilitators. I was one of those, that first group that went out. It was 5 of us. I think it was 5 of us, and we went to different schools training on trauma informed. And I was so enlightened. Even in the facilitation training, I was so enlightened. There was an exercise that we did where we had to take a piece of paper. One was A and the other one was B, and we had instructions. So say for instance, I was A, and it said, your partner, so we had to work in the groups, right? Your partner's going to yell at you and be really mean, right? And I was like, in my mind, okay, I'm ready for them to be mean. But she pulled B. Her paper said, be real patient and calm and nice with her, right? And then they had us work on a puzzle together with that in mind. So we're working on this puzzle, and the whole time, because in my mind, I'm waiting for her to yell at me. I'm waiting for her to be mean. I'm reserved. I'm just like, and she's just finding words like, oh, good. We got another one. And I'm just like,
when's she gonna scream?
When is she gonna scream at me? And it was like 8 of us in that class. So it was 4 groups. Me and my partner was the only one that went through that exercise right. I was so enlightened. Can I tell you, I was mind blown. And what she did, she put us in the shoes of someone who sees out of traumatic eyes. She showed us what they see. She showed us what they feel when they walk into rooms, and the reservations they have, the expectation of the abuse, the volatile nature. She put me in those shoes, and because I was the A person, I was the victim, the one that was expecting to be treated differently. I left that training just at all. I went out there and taught that. I'm telling you, it was so amazing. And so, like, when they went around, we had to talk about our experience, and everybody else was just so puzzled, like, well, we did a puzzle together. And it's so funny, like, even when me and my partner was doing our puzzle, I remember towards the end, I realized this woman's not going to scare me. And I started finding words. But before, like in real life, I couldn't find a word because I'm waiting for her to scare me. And that was that whole transition of trauma informed. You know what I mean? The patience that you develop with someone who has been traumatized in any form or fashion. So I love the new trauma informed approach. I really do. I appreciate it because before this, yes, we were very cold people, no patience, no sensitivity. And yes, I do. And I love when you say that when we're sensitive, we can get in. You know what I mean? We can get in, and they'll give us access. That's what you said. They'll give us access to the trauma, and then now you can help them remove that bullet. Dr. Amarante, thank you
are welcome.
so much.
You are welcome
for coming
Thank
to
you
the
for having
podcast.
me.
sharing your insight. I think every time we talk, you change my life in some form or fashion. I appreciate you because I'm so serious. I can see my daughter. I see her in a different light more and more. Like God has helped me over time, but this really just kind of really prepared me for whatever, just to really be patient and walk with her through her journey. So thank you so much for coming on our show. Arianna Hullum, she missed the episode. She missed the episode. Just tune in, right?
Yeah.
So listen, thank y'all. Do me a favor. Y'all put some comments, make some comments in our comment section. Thank Dr. A for coming out and sharing her insight, her professional skills, her perspective. I hope you were enlightened today by this vessel's story, by her own personal story, and then what she experienced in the field. Go ahead, hon.
So one more thing, for those of you who are in the Wisconsin, Milwaukee area, if you are in need of mental health services and do not have insurance, feel free to call our agency. We will provide pro bono services for you.
Awesome.
The number is 414-939-9390, or you can email me at www.dramarante@mtatcw.com. Hopefully you'll put it.
We will put that on the bottom of the screen. Yes.
In addition, if you do not live in the Milwaukee area and you're in need of services, make sure that there's a couple of options for you. You can always call that 1-800 number that you listed, the 1-800-656-4673.
She doing my job, y'all. Go ahead.
And they will connect you with services in your area. State insurance is not that difficult to apply for. What I would do, if to start off, you can use a computer or your cell phone, Google it, and just put the name of your state. Like Wisconsin, you would put Wisconsin healthcare, or New Jersey healthcare. Anything with the word healthcare afterwards will lead you to mental health services, and then direct you to how to apply for state insurance. If for whatever reason you're not successful in doing your search, reach out to me. I will take out the time to assist you, and regardless of what state you live in, to help you, like link you with a therapist. It doesn't matter.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amarante. I appreciate that. Yes, we will put her phone number, her email, website at the bottom of the screen. You can also find it in the link. I will tag your link in our bio, and if you have any social media pages, all of that. If you need to get in contact with Dr. Amarante, you will find her information in the link in the bio. Thank you so much again. Listen, we hope that you will come back and join us and have amazing conversation. This is a hard topic. We know we don't do this easily. We don't do it jokingly, but this is really a serious topic. Somebody has to have it, and just so happened it is us. So listen, come back, join us in other future conversations, wonderful stories. And remember, if you or anyone like Dr. Amarante said, if you are experiencing sexual abuse, first of all, we want you to speak up. Tell someone. If you can't find anyone near you, go to someone far from you. If you can't find someone else, pick up the phone, call somebody. And again, reach out to the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-4673, or go to their website, www.rain.org, and that's RAIANN.org. The statistic that I always bring about on this channel, that we are trying to annihilate. We're trying to interrupt this statistic that you will find on the rain.org website, that every 68 seconds someone in the world is sexually abused, and every 9 minutes that victim is a child. We want to interrupt that statistic by speaking up. If you speak up, you will condemn the act, and it will stop the act, and you can get the help and the freedom that you actually need. Again, if you're interested in coming on our platform and sharing your story, our our email is on the bottom. You can also find it in the link in the bio. And please do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification, comment. We want to be a community, be a part of our community. Follow us again, or join us again, follow us. And thank you so much for joining this episode today. Until next time, we shall see you again.